Oh, all right, guys. So, those of you who've been here before knows that my internet connection out here on the Catalan countryside is not great, and now I'm sharing internet with tens of thousands of tourists as well. So, if this continues like this and it just comes on and off, then I'm not going to continue, and I will continue doing these live streams when the tourist season is over and I can get some better internet. I have been trying to get a permanent connection for so long now, but it just does not work. Anyway, so to answer the first question, yeah, if we don't get into contact with someone who's handing us over onto final, then what we do is we will either try to call the controller and ask them to hand over to the next frequency. If that doesn't work, I will just switch over to the frequency myself and tell the new controller that, listen, the old controller, we couldn't get in contact with them, so we contacted you, and they can then go back to the other controller and tell them, listen, this aircraft is with us now, so don't worry. So there's always a way to go forward with this. Next question from Oli Watashi. Are there disabled pilots, like with walking sticks? And yes, to a certain extent there are. I have a friend of mine who had polio when he was small, which meant that he is walking with a quite severe limp. And he got a class 1 medical anyway because it was good enough for him to manipulate all the controls. So if you're healthy and you have a small disability of some sort, but you can still do all the required maneuvers, then you can still get a class 1 medical. So yes, I know that there was a guy in my old flight club who had a wooden leg. Obviously not a class 1 medical, but a class 2 medical in that case. So yeah, it does exist and it is possible. You do have to talk to your aeronautical examiner in order to know if you have a disability of some sort, how bad it can be. Right, so that's a great question. From Dog Paulie, great to see you, Dog. By the way, I saw your video from your flight there. It was a great experience. I watched through the whole 15 minutes of it, and I'm happy that it worked as well as it did. Hopefully, you'll get to go do more flights soon. But it is great actually. And if you want to, you can send me an email after this. If you want to, I can actually share that on the Facebook page so that people can see how it is. To travel as a wheelchair passenger on an aircraft, because I found it fascinating to see. So, Doug is asking, hi mentor, have you ever gone Nordo during a flight, landed Nordo, interesting experience? And Nordo, I don't really know what that stands for, Doug. Send me a clarification in the email. You have my email address and I'll answer it to you. Kevin Sutherland, how does a non-pilot steal a plane from an airport? Yeah, that's a question that I think a lot of people is going to ask for the coming days in the United States and over here. I think that this is one of those kind of things that will change how things are done, how background checks are being done, how security checks on the airport is done, and possibly even end up with locked aircraft on the tarmacs. So what we're referring to here is obviously the really tragic event that happened in Seattle yesterday, where a ramp employee got a hold of a parked aircraft and managed to start up the engines, took off without authorization, flew around for around 60 to 90 minutes, I think, did barrel rolls and all kinds of crazy maneuvers, and then ended up crashing the aircraft and killing himself. He didn't kill anyone on the ground, he didn't kill anyone on board except himself, but yeah, why and how that happened is a question that we are going to ask ourselves. I guess that you guys who were flying, like flight simulator and stuff like that, you will probably be able to figure out through that how to start up the engines of an aircraft, and it's just not good enough to rely on people not knowing how to start the engine. There's going to have to be some kind of safety measures taken going forward. It's a very tragic event, but we'll see what comes out of it. So, more questions here. Adriano P. Passarelli. Dear Peter, I hope you're doing fantastic. Thank you. What's your general feelings about helicopters? Ever been interested in flying them? Yeah, I mean, I would love to go and try to fly an helicopter. I have friends who does. I think that they're extremely cool machines. The technology fascinates me. The reason that I never went for helicopter professionally is because there are very, very few jobs available. So it's a bit of a risk to take the helicopter training, commercial helicopter training, because it's also very expensive, much more expensive than flying an aircraft or training on an aircraft. So I never really looked into that professionally, but I do have the fullest respect for people who do. Just stand by, a guy. Do you want your drone? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So let's see. I put the drone there.
No, I have the drone. I just need the yes card.
It's my son who wants his drone card to go out and do some filming. Anyway, so that's what I thought about helicopters. Like I said, if anyone out there has a helicopter or helicopter school and wants me to come and try it out, then just contact me. I would love to do a video on that, because I think that it's much harder than it looks. So, what goes into making new routes for airlines by Coleman Lee? Well, first of all, it's going to be negotiations with the different airports that might be involved. There's also going to be a marketing team that would look at what the potential of passenger output is. There's going to be loads of behind doors negotiations between the airline and the airport. The local region might be involved as well. And if the airline sees that there's a potential there, then they will ask to get slots from the airport involved into whatever airport they're going. Because that's the thing as well. You have to be able to fit in a flight into the schedule. So on a small airport, that's not going to be a problem. But on a bigger airport like Heathrow, Gatwick, Los Angeles, New York, it might not be possible. But once that's done, flight planning will come into force. They will, make the repetitive flight plans that are required, and then once that's all in order, then they will just get going and start flying it. Basically, from our point of view, there's not much to it. We need to study the plates to a new airport that we're going to. We obviously the performance department has to go in and do some performance tests on the airport as well. Check out what kind of if we need to make an emergency turn procedure, for example. That depends on if there's a lot of mountains around, what kind of takeoff performance is needed, and things like that. So there's quite a lot of work that goes into an absolutely new destination. And also, on top of that, the first couple of routes that are flown into a completely new destination, normally flown by line training captains like myself, where we fly into that and we write down any little kinks that we find, anything that we think probably we need to tell other pilots about. Think about this, think about the fueling procedures, think about the fact that the pulpits are set to a non-normal angle, or things like that. So there's a lot of work that goes into flying or making new routes. So, Doug, Paulie again, Nordro, where radio or both radios break, preventing radio comms with ATC. Yeah, so less loss of radio, basically. I've never had that. It's very rare that you lose both radios, okay? There are set procedures for it. For every country, there's normally a set procedure, and there's an over kind of mounting procedure for loss of comm that we have to follow. Most of the cases where you have loss of comm is because people have been chatting away, not monitoring the frequency correctly, and ended up going outside the radio range. And what you can do then is you just put 1 to 1.5 in, and you call out blindly on the frequency saying that we are here. Can someone advise on a frequency to use? And most of the times there will be a lot of people calling 1 to 1.5, because we should be monitoring 1 to 1.5 anyway. Because that's where they will try to call us up in case they lose radio contact with us. But if we have completely lost radios, there are, like I said, procedures in force, and it will normally require us to fly the flight plan route, go into holding pattern, wait to our expected approach time, and then start shooting our approach. Obviously, squawking 7600, which is the radio failure code, and then continuously transmitting blind both on 1 to 1.5 and on the frequency of the tower frequency, for example. But like I said, the chance that we would actually suffer two radio failures at once is very remote. So it's most likely the human factor that's going to be involved if something like that happen. Piers Townsend sent in but I didn't get a question. So Piers, if you go into the Mentor Aviation app and then you send me a message through the app, then I just going to submit feedback on the app settings, and that will send me an email, and I will answer your questions that you had on there. And that goes for Ryan Wilson as well, which also sent in a support but did not send a question. So thank you very much for your support anyway. CA97, what did you think of the incident in Seattle? Yeah, we've already been talking a little bit about that. It's a very tragic event. It's going to get a lot of people thinking about airport security, background checks on people working on security, but also just how to secure aircraft. You know, it shouldn't be possible for someone who's been playing a little bit of flight simulator to go out, get into an aircraft, start up the engines, and take off without anyone stopping him or her. So there's going to be changes coming out of this, right? You can see it already when something like this happens. You can kind of see that there will be changes to how airport security, ramp security is being made. I think it's very sad. I don't think that guy actually did get up that morning thinking that he would do this. I think this was a spur of the moment kind of, shit, I'm going to do this, because that's how he sounded on the air traffic control recordings anyway. And then once he was in the air, that was, it was no turning back. At least that's how it sounded. It's very, very sad. My thoughts goes out to his family. He was a married man. His parents, his colleagues, especially, that should, it must be really, really terrible for them and everyone working around the airport. So all together, once again, there's nothing positive to say about this. Very tragic, and it's going to change things. All over the world, I think, is going to be changed when it comes to this. So, Odd Gamer, hey, have you taught students basic ground school or only your line training? No, I've never actually done the initial part of the course, as in PPL or CPL training. I went straight to becoming a type rating examiner and type rating instructor and a type rating examiner. But I have been doing ground school. I have been teaching ground school as part of the type rating. So SOPs, performance, things like that. So yes, I have done some ground school, but not in at a flight school level. I would hope that this is probably good enough. I would love to be involved in flight schools, though. I would love to come and do a little bit of motivational speaking and talking to students and give a little bit of guidance and stuff like that. This is something that I'm hoping, as this channel grows bigger, I will be able to do. Travel around a little bit to different flight schools, see different flight schools, talk to different students, preferably from all over the world. I know that there's a lot of people in the United States watching this, so if you're in the States and you have a flight school and you thought that sounds like a good idea, then contact me going forward. Ryan Wilson, thanks again, Ryan. This is the second time you try, so once again, I do thank you for your support. I think that you have a question. Go into the Mentor Aviation app, go to submit feedback, send me an email, and I will answer your question there. All right. Sam, the Reiner Man, what do you use EWAS? What is an emergency turn? I don't know what EWAS is, so I'm guessing I'm not using it. I hope not. And an emergency turn is a turn that is stipulated to, in case we have, for example, high terrain in the departure area of an airport. In that case, we have a company procedure which stipulates, in case you lose an engine during takeoff, we don't want you to follow the standard instrument departure. We want you to follow the different routes that will keep us clear of terrain with single engine performance. So that's an emergency turn. It's an internal company procedure, which means that if it does happen, we have to tell air traffic control what we're doing, because they won't know it. We won't be able to tell them like we're doing an emergency turn. No, we have to tell them we are going to turn left onto this heading, we're going to climb to this, and we're going to do this while we're doing it with an engine failure. So it can get quite intense quite quickly. Right, so let's see. Some questions coming up in the Mentor Aviation app, which, by the way, is really busy nowadays. It's great to see how you guys are interacting and how I can come in and answer questions there from time to time. So it's great to have you here. Let's see. Mentor, can a pilot access internet on board at cruise or call a family member? No. So there are airlines that has internet. Most or all of them will have rules regarding use of internet on board. That would be for people who are, pilots who are have rest time, for example, a long haul flight. But it's not supposed to be used by pilots to sit and send Instagram pictures or chat with family. So no, pilots. This I got to get a lot of questions about if people are allowed to listen to music, for example, while flying as well. If you're a PPL out in your own aircraft, then you can probably do that. If you are an airline pilot, then you should be focusing on flying the aircraft and listening to air traffic control and things like that. So generally speaking, we're not even allowed to sit and play games. All right, we should be focusing on what we're doing. Discussing things with each other is allowed, but that's kind of the extent to it. Hi Mentor, what is flight hours or flying hours of commercial pilot? What is your flight hours? So I haven't actually calculated my logbook for a while, but I am somewhere north of 10,000 hours, of which about 250 hours are on smaller types, and the rest is on the Boeing 737-800. Flight time is calculated. We calculate flight hours as block time. So from when the aircraft is starting to move with the intent of flying until we are at the gate again stopped. That's what's calculated as flight time. Sorry, as block time. That's your total time is going to be block time. Flight time is actually from takeoff to landing. So there's several different times. You'll notice that when you get your first logbook that you're going to have to calculate flight time, block time, instrument time, night time, daytime, piloting command hours, seconding command hours, things like that. So there's loads and loads to keep track of. Right, guys, I see there's a lot of questions coming up here. If you do have something really important, then use the super chat. You will also be supporting the channel by doing so. And by the way, while I'm saying that, I want to send out a huge thank you to my Patreon crew. Right, my Patreon crew are people who have decided that they want to support the channel financially. I give them some special content. I answer their questions when they have any. If they want to, they can set up a one-on-one meeting with me, at least on the higher levels on my Patreon page, and we can have a chat if they want, some specific answers. But mainly, I use my Patreon crew to preview videos. If I have loads of different thumbnails, then I send it up to my Patreon crew, and they can choose which thumbnail I should be using for each video. So basically, they're my feedback loop. They're the ones that checking that I'm not saying something stupid or that my videos are not, interesting. Then they would tell me. So if any of you who's out there now want to join my Patreon crew, that this sounds cool, then there's a link here in the description of the video. Just go there, check out what it is, and if you want to join, then everyone's free to join. It's great help, and I do want to say thank you once again. If you are a patron, it's greatly appreciated. L3T is asking, what subjects would you recommend doing if you want to do piloting? We discussed this on almost every live stream, and the subjects that you need to study hard is mathematics, physics, and natural sciences, but also English if that's not your mother tongue. So English, maths, and physics. Those are the things that you should have good grades in order for you to be successful in your pilot training later on. And like I said, you've seen that I do commercial, that I'm sponsored by Brilliant.org. If you feel like math is something terrible and you don't really like doing it, check out Brilliant. They actually do help a lot of people with getting to terms with that kind of phobia, mathematical phobia. They have great tools. I wish I would have had it when I had to study for math because I was terrible. Angelo Valentino, hi Mentor, greetings from Switzerland. Greetings. Do you know a lot of pilots who have done modular training, or is it integrated way more common? Yeah, I know a lot of people who've done it the modular way. I would say at the moment it's probably about 40-60 integrated to modular, or the other way around. So there's more people doing integrated than modular, but there's more and more people doing the modular way because it's way cheaper. And at the moment, well, back in the day, it was really important which flight school you were coming from because the flight school could put you straight into an airline. Now there's so much pilots needed that even the modular crews are getting fairly easy access to interviews. So if it's cheaper and the quality of training is almost equal, depending on how good research you've done, then of course more people are going to go modular. So I know a lot of people that I fly with that's gone modular. Some of my friends have gone modular. So yeah, it definitely happened. Så, hej! Vilket flygbolag flyger du för? Du är bäst, från Fabian. So Fabian, I'm very sorry to disappoint you here, but those are one of those questions that I do not answer. The reason for that is fairly easy to figure out which airline I fly for. It's not a secret, it's not something I'm trying to hide. It's just that my airline has said that we are happy with what you're doing, but we do not want you to act as a spokesperson for the airline. So I don't do that, and I don't do that by the means of not talking about them, not showing their signia, their logo, or anything like that. So I fly for an airline that I've been flying for, the same airline for 16 years. I am happy where I am, and but I'm not going to be talking about them unless they specifically ask me to do so, and they haven't done that so far. So no, I won't be talking about that. Ignotus Peverell, what's the difference between ATPL and MPL license? Well, an MPL license, basically, I've done a whole set of videos on the different license types. So if you go in and you look at the playlists that I have on my channel, you'll find different pilot licenses. Go and check that out. But to keep it short, an air transport pilot license, an ATPL, is what you need in order to be a commander of a commercial aircraft. Okay, so a transport category aircraft. So you need an ATPL in order to become a captain. I have an ATPL. Now the difference is really between a CPL and an MPL. A CPL is a standard commercial pilot license that you do through an integrated course or through a modular course. An MPL is a newer version of a CPL, which is made, basically you start off from the beginning with a specific airline in mind. And the airline orders, we need, say, 15 MPL students. And then those MPL students are going to go through their training with the aim of the SOPs for that particular airline. Then they're going to go straight into doing type rating and the line training with that airline. There are some restrictions there. You have to do your training with that airline in order to lift your MPL and stuff like that. So MPL is a new idea. It was made to make the training for becoming a commercial pilot more streamlined, less about flying small aircraft, more about focusing on flying transport category aircraft. Hasn't really panned out that much. It's not as big as they hoped it would be, but it's similar to a CPL. It's just that you're in the beginning in your training, you are connected to a specific airline. Later on, you can go to other airlines as well, and you can also switch over to a normal ATPL. I hope that answers your question. CA97, given the current need for pilots, is it worth it to spend more on a better pilot academy, or is it okay to go a cheaper one? Well, when it comes to price, guys, it's going to be largely up to you how to research this. All right, there are really good flight schools that cost less than the most expensive ones, but there are also really poor flight schools that are very cheap. Okay, the reason that I want to point this out is because I really, really need you to not go to the poor ones, okay? Your training is important, so you need to do research about A, what did previous students think about the school? B, are the students getting hired? What does the airline think of people coming from this particular school? This is why it might be a good idea to go to a slightly bigger school, maybe one of the brand schools, but you don't have to take the most expensive brand school, okay? So, for example, I have been checking the quality of my old flight training organization, OSM Flight Academy. If you go to Mentour Pilot, let's see there, mentorpilot.com, you will see there's a direct link to them there where you can go in and you can get information and stuff about them. The reason that I am featuring them on my website is because I did my flight training there myself, and I know the managers there, and I know that they're giving high quality flight training. All right, they are not the cheapest ones. They cost, I think, around 80,000 euros or so. But also that makes them not the most expensive ones, because if you go to L3 or Oxford Aviation Academy or something like that, you will pay over 100,000 pounds. So you can save 20, 25, 30,000 euros by going to a high quality school, but still not one of the most expensive ones. Okay. Now, if you want to go really cheap, then it's all up to you. You are going to have to do all of this research yourself. I have heard horror stories about schools that do that are advertising themselves as the cheapest ones in Europe, and then they basically can't complete the training. They go bankrupt every 6 months or so, and they take the money out of the students and things like that. So basically, what I tend to tell people is, if the training costs less than 50,000 euros, you should be very careful. All right, because somewhere around there is where the schools can actually make a profit. And if they can't make a profit of you, they're not in this for charity. So it's likely that there's something else going on. So just be careful when you start to go on the integrated courses, I should say, below 50,000. On the modular ones, you can go below that, okay, and still get quality training. But it's also going to be largely up to the research you do. So, Kian, Agar, please keep making videos. Have a good day. I will. And I have several videos lined up with stuff that I hope that you think that is going to be interesting. And keep sending me suggestions. Keep telling me that, listen, we want more technical videos, or explain more about the 737, or how do you fly a non-precision approach. Whatever you think is interesting, really interesting, let me know, because if I find someone asking a good enough question, I will make a video on it, because I find it interesting to do, and I know that if you think that it's interesting, it's likely that thousands others also do. So keep sending me suggestions. Jordan calls. If your airline stopped flying to your current base, what would be your top 3 choices for a new base? I don't think I would move from here. Okay, I have my kids in school here. I have family here. I love the place where I'm living. I love Catalonia. I love the mountains, the sea, the food, the people. All right. So I think that if my base were to close, I would probably start looking for an employment where I could live, maybe fly out of Barcelona instead, but keep living where I am. Okay. If I would have to move, then Sweden obviously is my home country, so that would probably be second on the list. But it would largely be a discussion between me and my wife to see where we would end up. But basically, I don't really want my job to keep dictating my life for me. So I would look for solutions where my life could stay the way I like it, and then my job would have to wrap around that. But I have the luxury of doing that, because I have been flying for as long as I have, because I have this side project where I could continue. I could just expand the Mentour Pilot project and work more with flight schools and stuff like that. So I have given myself the possibility of not choosing, but being a bit more flexible. If you're in the beginning of your career, you don't have enough experience and stuff like that, then you will have to move around. And in that case, yeah, then just find a place where you think you'll be happy, go for it, but make sure you live there, because one of the biggest evils in aviation is commuting. Anyone who's tried to commute knows that they think it's going to be fine when they start, and after about 3 months, they want to rip their hair off their head. So try your absolute best to avoid commuting if you can. Right, so VXMEJ sends in some funds as well, but did not have a question. Once again, use the Mentour Aviation app, submit feedback, send me the question, I will answer it there. David R. Was yesterday's stolen airplane episode possible for a guy without a real pilot license? Seems he knew what he was doing. Yeah, it is. Like, listen, if you have FSX or Flight Simulator, whatever model you might have, you've learned through that. If you've been paying attention enough, you've learned through that how to start a jet engine, or how to start the aircraft up, because you know the sequence of it. You might not have the knowledge behind what each and every button do, or why it's important to know that, but you know the sequence. So you know that you have to press that one, and then that one, and then that one, and then that one, and that will start the engines, right? That will work if it is realistic enough, the flight simulator that you've flown. And then getting up, throttling up, it's probably something that you've learned as well from that. You just give full power, providing that he didn't try to rotate just after he set full power. If you just waited a few seconds, even without knowing the speeds, since he's alone in the aircraft and he has full power, the aircraft is going to fly. It's gonna take off. And once you're airborne, pull, the earth gets smaller, push, the earth gets bigger, turn, it will turn. right? So yes, I think that someone could get airborne doing that. Maybe it would be easier. I don't know how complicated a Q400 is. I think a Boeing would take more because it's a little bit more tricky. It's a bit older technology, but you could get airborne. The problem is, of course, once you're airborne, how do you survive getting down again? Because that's when the problems really start, okay? But he didn't have that problem. He just did some barrel rolls and stuff that he wanted to try, and then he crashed and died. So, yeah, the answer to your question is yes, I do think that someone without a pilot license could do what that guy did. I think that because of this, we are going to see some major changes. Probably going to start seeing properly locked aircraft, or at least cockpit doors. But it's too early to say, really. Right, Charles E. I just want to say thank you. I recently signed up for flight school, ATP, and I've learned so much from Captain Joe and yourself. Well, that's great to hear. This is why I'm doing it. I mean, this is a project that has grown way bigger than I ever thought that it would be. I never thought that I would be sitting here talking to 500 people live. I didn't think that 100,000 people would watch my video in 2 days. Or that I would have videos with over, close to 2 million views. Never in my life did I think that that would happen. But the fact is that I do get feedback from people who do seem genuinely happy about the information that I'm giving out. And as long as that's happening, as long as I feel that I can help anyone, people who are scared of flying, people who are wanting to become pilots, or people who are just generally curious, well, then I'll continue, because I think that this is fun. I love interacting with you directly. If you have my Instagram account, you've seen that I do some live streams there. And what I really love doing there, which I'm hoping that YouTube would pick up, is to get some of you in, so you get a split screen and you can talk to you guys directly via the live stream. That would be cool beyond imagination. All right. I think I'm going to give some feedback to YouTube about that, because I think it's silly that we can't. But to answer your question, or to say once again, thank you for watching. Without you guys who are watching this, I wouldn't be doing it. All right. So it's up to you. It's up to my Patreon crew, to all of the people who are coming into the Mentour Aviation app, who are talking to me on social media, Facebook, Instagram. It's because of that I'm keep doing this. Keep doing that. And I'm sure Captain Joe feels the same. Booba from Booba FDP. If your kids would like to become a pilot, what school would you recommend them? Well, that would be, once again, depending on when this happens. We would have to look into different schools. Hard to say, I know quite a few good schools by now, but which one of them that would be a discussion to take when it happens. I can't mention a school like that right now. But like I said, OSM, if you go in through I keep pointing the wrong direction here, to my website, if you go in there, I know that that's a good school. So I wouldn't, since I went there myself, I can guarantee that one. But I feel really uncomfortable with guaranteeing schools or talking about schools that I haven't gotten feedback from. So that's why I don't mention schools generally. Okay, so James Christensen, what's the value of flight level 510 for BizJets? Well, the higher you fly, as long as the aircraft can maintain its Mach number and indicated airspeed, and that's largely up to the jet engines and the design of the wings. If you can climb up to 510, you will get more efficiency. You'll get further on the same amount of fuel. So it's better. The higher you can go, the better it is from an economical point of view. Also, when you're up there, there's not going to be any other traffic, so you won't have to worry about not getting direct routings. For example, air traffic control will probably just route you as direct as they can, because there will be no conflict of other planes whatsoever. We noticed that already when I'm up at flight level 410, it's easier to get direct twos. You get down to 350, 340, there's going to be less of them. It's going to be more crossing traffic and things that air traffic control have to take into account. So yes, it's more fuel efficient, and it's just quicker in every single way. So, Saros Wani, recommend any flying school in India to do my CPL? No, I can't, because I don't know any of the flight schools in India. If you are a flight school the flight school owner in India, and you think that you're doing a great job, then please get in contact with me and we can do some evaluation of it and I can start recommending. But what I can tell you though is if you go into the Mentour Aviation app and you look for the video Flight School Contacts, okay? Flight School Contacts, in that I talk a little bit about what flight school to choose, but it's not the video that's the important thing. It's the description of the video. Because in the description of the video, you'll find contacts by country. You just go in and you find your country, and there will be people in there who've done their training in flight schools in that country. So you can contact them directly through the app. Just go use the nickname that's written there. You go into the chat, you just put Alpha and the nickname, and that will send a message to that person to say that you want to talk about it. And you can get direct feedback about flight schools, for example, in India or in New Zealand or in Canada or America or Sweden or UK or wherever you might be. So, and if you guys are listening to this and you are in the flight school right now, but you haven't told me about it, then once again, Mentour Aviation app, submit feedback in the settings, tell me what country you're in, what's the name of the flight school, and what your nickname is, and I will add you to that list, all right? So that we can keep updating with more and more flight schools, and I want only flight schools that you guys are happy with, all right? Or if it's something that you want to warn people about, that as well. Right, Saros, go in there. I think there are few flight schools in India that you can talk to people already right now. Sean Rady, I'm coming towards the end of the PPL and I'm thinking about CPL, but finance is an issue. Is there a way I can get a loan for training? Yeah, it's depending a little bit where you are, all right? There used to be a BBVA loan available in the UK for people who are doing flight training. I don't think they're doing it anymore. I know that OSM Flight Academy are in contact with several banks that if you do the training with them, they will be able to sort out a bank loan for you through them without any security as in a bank house or something in the background. But I think that's only available in Scandinavia at the moment, as in people who are Scandinavians. But I'm sure that they're working on that for more for people in different countries as well. So that's one thing. Otherwise, you are going to have to get a loan maybe on your parents' house. That's how I financed my type rating when I had to pay for that. And my parents actually took out a loan on their house, and I did the type rating with that loan, and then I paid the money back as soon as I humanly could. Okay, so that's one way. But I know that financing is a problem. All right, I'm well aware of this. So and so are the flight schools. So I think that at the moment, since there is a big shortage of pilots at the moment, they're probably looking into ways to solve this for you. But I don't have any better answer to that right now. All right, let's see the Mentour Aviation app if we have any questions there. Mentor, in air crash investigation, they say the pilot was in a federal prison. What is that? Well, if it was in a federal prison, that means that he was probably in the United States and in prison there. But that sounds very, very strange because we do background checks before you can get out an airside pass. Before you can get, beyond the security control as a pilot, you need to have a background check, and that includes any police record that you've had for the last 5 years. And I think they can go back even further than that if you've had any sentencing. So that sounds very strange. Okay, so there's questions in submit. All right, so let's see. I might have gotten the email about the super chat question then, because people have been sending me through the Mentour Aviation app to see it does work. Okay, so Evan Jordan. There we go. Let's see what the question is then. Do you believe grades are a deciding factor in selection? For example, would they choose grades over someone's passion? As school exams aren't tailored to individuals and I didn't receive all of the required grades, but I'm using Brilliant. However, I don't get a grade, but I will have the knowledge. I am hoping to gain a cadet program with Virgin Atlantic at L3. Also, is it dangerous to use flight simulators and get to use the aircraft right before flight school? Great questions. Right. The answer to that is that if passion doesn't matter for the flight school. All right. So just get that straight right now. Passion matters for you. All right. Passion matters for you because that's the thing that will give you stamina to get through the training. So passion is important because it will get you to the means end. Flight schools don't care if you're passionate. Everyone who comes to flight school is going to say the same, that being a pilot is their dream. What they care about is whether or not you can get through the training. So your grades is, if the flight school is looking at grades, then yes, they are important. Most flight schools are not, all right? But flight schools that takes in students for example, sponsored um, schemes like the Virgin Atlantic one are very likely to go by a grade. So grades are really important. This is why brilliant.org is good for heightening your knowledge and your in the subject, but you need to get that knowledge, to use that knowledge in your exams to get the grades. Right? Me, for example, I got into a government-sponsored program in Sweden, and I got in because I studied my butt off to get the grades needed in order to even be considered for the screening. Okay, so whenever you have something where there's a lot of people applying for the same job or the same flight school or whatever, they will start to use things like grades in order to make sure that the pile of applicants becomes manageable. So yeah, grades is important, guys. I'm not gonna say anything else than that. When it comes to using a flight simulator before your flight training, I've done a video on that actually, and what I've said is that by all means use a flight simulator in order to gain technical knowledge, for example, about a specific aircraft and stuff. Don't really use it with SOPs, okay? Because, well, depending on what you're doing, if you're doing it as a hobby, absolutely. But if you are going into flight school or for an airline and you use SOPs that are wrong, then you might learn stuff that is hard to de-learn later. And because your experience is low, it's going to be even harder. That's the problem we have with people coming from other airlines into my airline, for example, because our SOPs is really robust. They're used to other SOPs, and it takes a while to de-learn stuff that you've been doing for years. You don't want to put yourself in a situation like that by just flying flight simulator. So yeah, that's the answer to your question. Cool. Let's see. There might be other questions here as well. Some. So Ryan Wilson from the super chat again. I am waiting to hear back from CAE Oxford about my first selection day. I was wondering how many times you attempted the selection process before getting into your flight training. From Ryan. Yeah, Ryan, I was lucky. I managed to get through on my first attempt, but that was a government-sponsored program. I only really had one attempt. Okay. When it comes to these bigger flight schools, you can. I don't know if they have any maximum amount of attempts, but if you fail once, learn from that. Try to figure out what part of it you failed, and work on that, and then apply again. You know, like you need to be tenacious. You need to have stamina and continue, and do not let a failure face you. Okay, work on that. Use the power you have inside of you, the passion that you have, in order to go for your goal. All right, it might work, it might not work, but you have at least done your best, and that's the thing. You have to do your best. You cannot allow yourself to get beaten down by any single failure, because that's not who you are. That's not who you want to be. You want to be the person who did your absolute best, and then if there are some circumstances behind it, maybe some psychological ones or some physical ones that makes it impossible, well then so be it. At least you've done your absolute best. Okay? Right, guys, I'm coming up to 45 minutes now, and I'm gonna have to go and eat. And the reason that I did this live stream so early today, by the way, was because I knew I haven't done one for 2 weeks, and I'm still doing earlies. I'm doing the second week of consecutive earlies now, so I'm gonna have to go to bed in a couple of hours. And that's why I wanted to get at least one live stream in before, I can't let it go 3 weeks. I have to speak to you guys. That's why I'm here. So let's see. Takes a lot. Or if you have something really important that you want to ask, now use the super chat. Otherwise, I'll take some questions from the Mentour Aviation app, which I'm really happy with at the moment. So let's see. If you have any question here, Mentor, I've submitted feedback with my missed super chat question. All right. Let's see. If I haven't answered it already, Lucas, can just give me 5 minutes, okay?
Okay.
You don't have any clothes.
I need some batteries.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you two in a second. Okay, so oh, there's loads of questions coming in here, but it doesn't seem to be directed to me. People are talking to each other instead. So, Mentor, does the QRH contain anything other than emergency procedures? Yeah, it does. The QRH includes normal checklists, for example, the normal checklist chapter. So all of the checklists that we have, both on the yoke and on the Sunshelf, is included in the QRH as well. We have performance in flight, so a lot of performance in flight where we can calculate brake cooling time, for example, or drift down procedures. We have the emergency procedures, the manuals, sorry, the maneuver section as well, where we look at different maneuvers, circling procedures, in case of wind shear escape maneuver, obviously single engine procedures and things like that. And we also have something called a checklist introduction, which explains how the checklists are supposed to be used and how to be read. So there's loads of things inside of the QRH. Great question though. And that's something that I could probably do a video on. Okay, so last question from Sam Terrence in the super chat. I'm in a situation at the moment. Can I email? Yeah, Sam, absolutely email. Or if you're a member of my Patreon crew, then we can set up a one-to-one session through Skype, for example, as well. Because it's normally easier to, if there's something that you really want to discuss, to do it one-on-one. But that's something that I've said specifically that I only do that with members of my Patreon crew, because with almost 280,000 subscribers here, I would just basically be sitting doing that the whole day otherwise. So, great guys, I'm going to continue. I'll be available inside of the Mentour Aviation app for a few more minutes answering questions there in text format. So check into the Mentour Aviation app if you haven't already. It's completely free to download, by the way, so use it. And do check out some of the training courses I have in there. Like you can, for example, how to set up a 737-800 from cold to taxi, which I'm going to have to reconsider a bit now after that thing in Seattle. But if you want to see how we fly Cat 3 approach and go around, the wind shear escape maneuver on takeoff, wind shear escape maneuver on landing, TCAS escape maneuvers, all of that is available for a small charge inside of the app. So check that out as well. Have an absolutely fantastic day wherever you guys are, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.